After a lot of work from the last video and with a lot of patience, I end up having a skeleton that kind of looks like this. So this is way more complicated than a regular basic skeleton. I have a lot of different things that I can use in this one. So for instance, I have the eyeballs that are not really required. If I select those, I can move the eyeball independently from the eyelid, for instance, which is living exactly on top of the previous one. So I have the mandible, so if I want to, I can open and close the mouth. I also have this one here that is going to let me show another set of teeth for whenever Freddy is doing like a scary animation. And I'm just gonna go back to my skin combine pose, so it goes all the way back to the beginning. Now in this case, this thing is completely rigged and it's completely painted in such a way that is entirely what you wanted him to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this base just to show you what the process was for painting this. So I'm selecting that, I'm going to go to my go bind pose and then skin on bind skin. Now in this case, as I'm going to be doing a lot of floating influences, doesn't really matter the quality of the paint, but I'm going to be selecting the pelvis and Freddy mesh. The origin itself is something that most game engines use in order to represent your character. So this is basically where all of your movements are going to be coming from. If there is a rotation on your character, they're going to be coming from here. If there is a character jump, it's going to be from here. If it's landing on a platform, it's going to be checking against this position. So that's the reason why I have this origin. Now, in this case, now that I have all of my bind removed, it's time for me to do that quick bind. So once again, I'm going to go pelvis and the skeleton or the skin, and I'm going to go to my bind skin options. I'm going to be doing the settings for the geodesic voxel, although most of this is going to get removed anyways because I'm going to be doing a float influence. So I'm going to hit bind skin, and while this thing binds, there's a couple of things that I need to be aware of. This is sort of an animatronic kind of character. That basically means that it's a robot. So it is going to have a lot of bindings that are going to be completely independent of each other. So when I move this leg, I don't want them to be moving any part here of the hip, which is something that is going to happen to the nature of these elements. So for instance, after I did this bind, notice how the kneecap is moving alongside with that one, and how this looks really unnatural for something that is inorganic, something like a robot. And that has to do with the fact that this kind of binding, the one that I just created, it's pretty much aimed to have an organic component. So over here, what I'm going to do is really just going to be overriding the values. I'm going to be selecting these couple of vertices, probably going to be selecting these other vertices as well, and I'm going to select or hold control, right click and hold, and then go to shell. What that is going to do for me is going to select all of it as a single shell, and I'm going to go to paint my influences. So I'm going to click here, and then the whole model is in black, meaning that it's having a vertex selected. So I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and let's see, it's on my tool settings. The origin doesn't have anything painted, that's why everything is completely black, and this one is going to be my knee L. So knee L should be influencing all of these guys at 100%, so meaning that everything should be white, but in this case I have a gray area over here. I want to override all of these values, so I'm just going to be saying replace this with a value of 1, so everything is going to be floated to 1 in this case, and there I have it. So I have this object here. Whenever I rotate this particular joint, all of it is going to be moving. Now, as you can see, this one here on the top is also moving alongside with it, and in this case it's a little bit hard to select a particular vertex coming out of this. This one is going to be 100% influenced by this one here on the top. So one thing that I can do, it's a little bit more work, but it actually works. Just select one face, hold control, right click, and then go to vertices. That is going to show the vertices, but as I'm in this view, it's gonna be a little bit hard to see, so I'm just gonna go all the way here and then hold Control, right click, and then say to shell. In this case, I want to paint this thing and I want to paint it for the hip. It is going to be affected 100% by the hip, so I'm gonna hit flood, and that should be it for that part. Now when I turn my knee, when I do that rotation on the knee, it's gonna look something like this. Again, this is an animatronic and it is expected to be something like this. All right, what else should I be doing here? This side is not right as well. I saw that when I was painting the influences. May have some other objects coming up from here. These are going to be also be driven by the hip. It's hard to select some of them, but not impossible. Okay, so now that I have all of these guys selected, I just need at the very least one per shell. Select all of them and say to shell. Once I have that, making sure that I don't have anything other than the things that I mean to have selected, I'm going to go to paint my influences, and this one is going to be coming from the hip L, not the pelvis, just hip L, and I'm going to hit flood. Same deal is going to happen with this one. I'm going to select a vertex and right click and hold to shell. Paint this one now is going to be coming from the pelvis, so I'm going to hit flood. Notice that there's going to be a difference in this procedure coming from the ankle, because the ankle itself is meant to rotate this leg, but also I want to have some influence in here so I can tap my toes like impatiently. These ones here are usually just a point in which I can do like a ballerina kind of move. Position everything here. I use that for an inverse kinematic chain. I'm not gonna be going a lot in detail about that, but yeah, in reality this point right here is going to be sort of to position my character in the tip of his toes. So probably on this one I want to do a better paint job. There are some artifacts here that are kind of weird, but the whole idea is that I should just be able to do that now. On a simple rig, I only need to select all of these vertices, probably that one, select the whole thing to shell, and then go to paint my influences by floating them. So I'm going to be selecting those. This is going to be my ankle. Everything is going to be coming from here, and I'm going to be floating it to 1. So now when I select this joint and I rotate it, the whole thing is going to be able to go there. Right, so now I'm going to select this guy and I'm going to go to my bind pose. Now that I have it in my bind pose, there's another thing that I can do. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. At this point I will just do an incremental save, but I don't want to do that because I already have the whole mesh completely painted. But in this case I can go here and say skin, and then I can say mirror my skin weights, but I need to go to the options, make sure that I have that available. In this case I'm saying I want to mirror everything that I have on the left side to the right. So that's what the YZ plane means. And this seems fine. Let's try doing this. Also remember that you have to take in account the values. I'm growing on the X value, so if I see it this way, this is growing, X is growing this way. If I see it this way, X is growing that way. So that means that I'm going to be copying positive to negative. So let's try that, and I will hit apply. Once I have that, let's see if it actually did what I wanted it to do. This seems better. This seems fine. What about this part? Yep, it's taking all of them, and this is not really going to be modifying anything. So as you can see, I can really just paint half of the model and then have everything reflected onto the other side. Sometimes it's not going to be as precise, and the reason is probably the joints are a little bit offset, or the mesh itself is a little bit offset. If I don't have a perfectly symmetrical object, if my ear was over here and this other ear was down here, probably is not going to be doing the same thing. So that is a way of exporting this, but that is going to be it for this lesson. The next time that I'm here, I'm going to be talking about how to do keyframes so I can start animating this asset. So that is going to be it for now. See you in the next lesson.